Hey, what's going on, everyone? Today we are going through an entire tier list of the disruptors that we see in early access of Godforge, at least those that we are hoping to see. When it's going to happen, we don't know yet. And frankly, one of the first things I want to address is that I don't know when that's going to be, primarily because look at all of the heroes on this list that don't have skills yet. Guys, these are just the disruptors, and this is almost a third, a little bit over that, of how many of these heroes don't have any skill sets yet in the game. Now, granted, this is on ravenpyros.com, so this is not godforge.gg, but the source material for all the data on side of Raven Pyros is Godforge. So, these have all been manually entered by some content creators. And with this many that still don't have skills, it's a little concerning, even looking at mid-April. Now, granted, there has been some conversations, and on one of Sneaky's recent conversations with Simon himself, Simon did say that they are kind of looking towards perhaps more of a closed beta where progress will be wiped for early access, kind of thing like that. And we just don't know what it's going to be. But from my stance, what I would say is, man, just let us in. Even if it's wiped, even whatnot, we're just really looking forward to playing. But this week, I put out a video talking about Odin and how incredibly powerful he is with his updates since Alpha, and that really started to put in perspective the power of some disruptors that they've created in the game compared to others. And what better than a good old tier list to talk about it? First and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, you will see that the S tier is very lonely at the top, and that is simply because there are none other than two legendary disruptors that are this good. And yes, the reality is that they are eternal. Some of you have been seeing in my recent videos talking about the eternal heroes and some of their kits and how powerful they are, and even talking about Belobog and his partner Chernobog. I think I said that correctly. But a lot of these eternal heroes are absolutely S tier incredible in their class, and frankly put a lot of the competition to shame. Questionably in my mind whether they should be doing it that much, but you let me know down in the comments. Are some of these eternal heroes too powerful for the beginning of a brand new game? I have concerns about it, but at the same time, we'll see how it goes. A lot of these disruptors are absolutely incredible. And I did start, guys, with disruptors because we have had a lot of issues when it comes to just understanding this archetype, what they're supposed to be doing in the game, and frankly, kind of questioning how valuable they are. You'll see in the A class, I have Skadi, who was one of the absolute MVPs of Alpha. And yes, her kit has changed, but she still has a great source of freeze on her kit. And so that is why she's in A tier, but we're going to get into all of it. So let's start right at the top with Morrigan, the absolute best disruptor in all of Godforge to date. And well, there's a couple of reasons why. Primarily, she has an entire debuff fully centered around her alone, Dark Tidings. And you will see here that that debuff, one, does a couple of things, but it stacks 5 times. And it decreases the damage inflicted by 5%. And when those stacks are full, her ultimate will rip them away. But at max stacks, it also decreases speed and initiative of the enemy that has it by 10%. So if you just turned off her ultimate, she would be slowing down the enemy team, an incredible amount. But anyway, she does attack an enemy, placing initiative down 2 on the target, and then placing Dark Tidings on the target, which is great because she also places Dark Tidings on her core, placing 2 stacks on every enemy, and with a 75% chance, probably going to level up to 100% chance to place Despair. And, you know, we will get used to these. I will get used to these, but Despair does prevent buffs and positive effects from being placed, so kind of like a block buffs debuff, but also misses their turn. The only issue I have with Despair and why it may not be one of the top disables in the game, in my personal opinion, is that the duration is reduced when receiving a buff or effect. So if you happen to have a hero that comes back, the enemy team has a hero that comes back or, you know, doesn't get despaired, then they could buff up the enemy or heal them or anything that is a effect, and they all tick down and despair is gone. So despair in itself is good, primarily because it is basically block buffs, but it's maybe not my favorite disable. But all that to say, you do see Despair actually quite a bit in this tier list. So let me know what you think about Despair in the comments, and make sure while you're down there to hit that subscribe button. But if the target is a boss, this is what I love when they give boss mechanics in a fight. It makes Morrigan completely viable and far more content because disables just simply don't really have an effect on bosses. But it places speed down 2 on the target for 2 turns instead. Great ability. Jumping down to her generator, her ultimate generator, she gains 50 divinity when dealing damage to enemies under Dark Tidings. And Dark Tidings places on an enemy, then attacks. So on wave content, you're talking about 5 enemies. She gets 5 hits. It's 250 divinity and 1 damage. Excuse me, on 1 hit. Man, could you imagine if she attacked twice with this one? But no, she places the 2 stacks and then she takes a turn. What would be crazy if she got 50 divinity when dealing damage to enemies under Dark Tidings per Dark Tidings stack, but I highly doubt it's coded that way because that would be absolutely nuts. Anyway, she continues on with that ultimate. She is going to gain ultimate pretty quickly, seeing as she's constantly putting out that debuffs, but she will remove all buffs from the enemies, basically a total strip of buffs, then attack 3 times, placing drain 2, placing defense down 2, placing attack down 2. Great debuffs for sustaining your team, for doing more damage, and God, just solid. The ones that you want are right there. Omen of the Raven, absolutely incredible. And then, of course, Future Sight. When an enemy receives a buff, reduces duration by 1. When it receives a debuff, increases duration by 1, which I can't wait to see how this plays into her actual abilities itself, because if you get a debuff, i.e., Dark Tidings, placing 2 stacks of it, and her Future Sight kicks in, that means you're automatically giving 3, maybe? I don't know if duration is the same as stacks. That's the thing, because technically stacks, I think you're placing another buff, or excuse me, another debuff. And so it might very well play completely differently. But if this is coinciding with her own abilities, that means that instead of doing 2 turns on all of her ultimate skills, she's actually going to be placing these debuffs for 3 turns each, which, sheesh, it's a lot of debuffs. She's an absolute killer champ. So she is top of the list, 100%. I put a whole video out on Odin. In fact, it was earlier this week. I'll put it up here in a card. So make sure and go check that out if you haven't. But this guy is bonkers compared to what he was in alpha. He has a lot more abilities. He's putting confuse on the target, so they're attacking one another. He's charming targets as well. He has a lock passive on each target for 2 turns. That is all enemies attacking 3 times. The second hit probably leveling up to 100, if not maybe 90. I don't know. We'll see. But lock passive on all of them and increase the rank of all debuffs on target by 1. This guy is absolutely nuts, and they definitely went to town on his kit. He is an eternal legendary worthy of the name. But like I said, if you want a full deep dive of this one, I did an extensive video earlier this week, so go check that out. So moving on to the A tier, we have Camazotz, and this is when it starts getting harder, guys. Tier lists are hard, let's face it, honestly. But Camazotz deals more with turn meter control, and these other 2 have dealt more with just simple, crowd control, and so placing disables. And you do see that, see some despair here, but really, Camazotz is focusing a lot on turn meter control, and really, disruptors do 3 things, right? They either disrupt with crowd control, they disrupt with turn meter control, or they disrupt with divinity control. And so when you are even talking about, ranking and working with these, you're really talking about 3 completely different types of heroes. And that is challenging because you, the viewer, may think that turn meter control is way more beneficial than divinity control. Or I may think the opposite. Or another CC may say, no, just placing a reliable disable is the number one thing I'm looking for. And so this all comes down to opinion, guys. So remember, this is all opinion and it is subject to change. But Camazotz, he attacks one enemy 3 times, probably 100% chance to reduce the target's turn meter by 5%, but I probably shouldn't say probably. So 75% chance to reduce the target turn meter by 5%, but it's not very much. Let's jump down to his passive. When this hero inflicts a critical hit, steals 5% of the turn meter. If it's a strong hit, steal further 5%. So I am assuming, I feel like that would be a total of 10%. But if it didn't, I feel like it would say steal 10% instead. And so it's probably a 5% and then another 5%. And so it might not be a full 10%. We'll have to see in testing. But what this means is if you crit cap this guy and he is attacking, he is eternal. Granted, the 3 best disruptors are all eternal legendaries. No shocker there. He is not only going to be reducing target's turn meter by 5%, but he's also going to be stealing 5% turn meter. And as far as I read this, which man, I've gotten some great feedback from the team as well. So hey, Fateless, if you are watching this, thank you so much for your responses to my thoughts and just feedbacks on these kits. I do really value that. So feel free to kind of help in solidifying this. But this reads to me that it would probably be an additional 5%, like his basic hits and also his passive kicks in. So he is first reducing by 5%, and then he steals 5%. And if it's a strong hit, it steals an additional 5% based off whatever is left. This guy is ripping turn meter control off the enemy like crazy. But then on his core, he attacks all enemies with an 80% chance to place Drain 2 on each target for 2 turns. This guy reminds me a lot of man, the bat guy in Raid Shadow Legends. Remind me in the comments what his name is. But I mean, Drain 2, you know, doing multiple hits. He's strong. He seems to be pseudo like built for damage, even though he's a disruptor, because you want to crit cap him. So sounds like a lot of fun. But then Screech of Doom, attack all enemies 2 times. Each hit has an 80% chance to reduce the target's turn meter by 10%, probably stacking again with his passive. If the target is above 50%, place speed down 2. Fantastic for 2 turns. And then otherwise place despair on them for 1 turn. Great. Slow him down or control him. Absolutely fantastic. And his generator is that he gains 30 divinity when decreasing an enemy's turn meter. He is basically, I mean, his core doesn't, right? Well, it actually doesn't even matter. If he is if he is critting on every hit, he is decreasing turn meter, unless decreasing and stealing are different. But he is decreasing turn meter on every single critical hit. And so he is going to be shooting that ultimate, that divinity up like crazy. So solid champion. And then next up we have Hades. Yes, I know. I've hated on Hades a lot. All of my tier lists from Godforge quests put him at the bottom, right there with Loki. But let's really talk about this now, because we also need to think about when you are thinking about a hero and what he can do. You have to think about what he's built for. And frankly, the leader bonus says it all, guys. He is a disruptor that is meant for arena, 25% speed in arena battles. He is supposed to get in there, start his turn, put curse on the enemy nuker, and then mess that nuker up so that you cannot get destroyed by it. And so by doing that, we're talking about at the start of this hero's turn, he places the curse down 2 on the enemy with the highest attack. That is his passive. And starting with Hades' passive is the best way to understand him, because once that curse is placed, which by the way, if the enemy is defeated, it moves. It cannot be dispelled or resisted. So he attacks all enemies and places despair for 1 turn and places a lock ultimate on the enemy that has curse. If you pair him with another hero that has curse in their kit, there's a couple of them. I think there's even some good like epic options as well. But he is going to be putting lock ultimate. He's going to be putting lock ultimate out everywhere. And so, really, an absolutely great core. And even if you're just putting log ultimate on one hero, it's still going to be really helpful, seeing as curse is automatically going on the highest attack hero. His basic, you attack one enemy with a 30% chance to place sleep. Okay, not 100%. It's a basic attack. I wouldn't, if there is a disable on a basic attack, I do not expect it to be 100%, not guaranteed. Absolutely not. Never. I will be curious to see what this levels up to when we see what the skills do. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 50%. We'll see. But then his ultimate, he attacks all enemies 2 times. It first decreases turn meter by 20%. That's a solid chunk. The second attack places speed down 2. Also places initiative down 2 if they're under curse. Again, just controlling divinity, controlling the ultimate of that nuker, which basically tells me that Fateless is putting a lot of weight in the ultimates of heroes. And so cores are nice, but it's all about the ultimate. And speaking of his ultimate in the generator forward, he gains 40 divinity when inflicting damage to enemies under curse. Now, what this tells me is that you definitely want to pair him with somebody else who's placing curse, if at all possible, because there's no attack down on his kit. And so it's not like he's going to be placing curse on one person and then placing it on somebody else on the next turn. And so this really relies on either one, placing it, killing them, and passing it on to somebody else, or simply having more curses out there. And if you can spread it or multiply it by another hero, whatever you can do, I mean, it's going to make Hades go absolutely nuts. But the speed down 2 is incredible. This guy, for being an arena, designed to be played in arena, supposed to be a niche in that area, definitely an A tier disruptor. Let me know if you disagree. This is a huge turnaround for my opinion, but now that I'm no longer thinking about heroes in terms of Godforge quests and like, hey, who should you get from Godforge quests? Now I'm thinking about how will they play in the game mode they're potentially designed to play in. Next up, we have Mordred. Now, Mordred was an absolute clutch goat in alpha, especially in wave 3. I even had a video was like, hey, don't sleep on Mordred, contextually kind of out of place now, but if you want to check it out, I'll link it up there. This guy put out Confuse like nuts. Even if it was Confuse, it might have, no, yeah, it was Confuse in the alpha. And regardless of the fact that it wasn't 100%, I believe his awakening put Confuse for 2 turns, which just made him absolutely crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if they changed that. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. In fact, let's just take a look, just make sure. We should have awakenings in here. We have, let's see. So ultimate ability upgrade, passive ability upgrade. So yeah, they have changed that. Awakening 5, Awakening 3. Yeah. Yeah. It looks like they have changed that to where he's not doing 2 turns of a disable, which makes sense. I haven't seen really that on anybody else. He was nuts at it, that's for sure. But yeah, absolutely incredible champ. But yeah, so he places corrupt on targets on his basic. He places confuse on all enemies with not 100% chance, but on targets for 1 turn. This was pretty reliable in alpha. He is A tier, even though it's not a guaranteed placement of a disable. It's still a high chance, and he's attacking all enemies because of what he's bringing to the team and continue to do damage. He is an A tier. I have a feeling he might shift once we come into actual gameplay. We'll have to see how he feels now that he's no longer an absolute S tier carry that he was an alpha. But I still kept him A tier, might be because of nostalgia, but there you go. In fact, might need to switch with Devana. Wow. This Eternal, shocking. Which let's double check. Okay, so Hades was cunning, so was Mordred. So we have 2 cunning champions, but then next up, But then next up is an Eternal Epic in Devana. She attacks all enemies on her basic. Already, if you can get this epic early in the game, you use her, you crit cap her, and thank me later. Because 30%, 35% chance to decrease the turn meter by 20%. I don't care if 35% chance is low, y'all. On a basic 20% turn meter drop is going to be absolutely great. Especially because she's attacking all enemies. So there's a solid chance she's doing 1, 2, maybe even more enemies in this attack. But then her Storm of Arrows, her core, attacks all enemies 2 times with a 75% chance to place attack down 2 and speed down 2 if this levels up to 100%, which I really think it will. Oh my gosh. I want her on my team all the time. Reliable attack down, reliable speed down. Incredible. And except for her ultimate, which you can already see which debuff is on there, which already makes her a solid um, disruptor. But like aside from her ultimate, her regular attacks that she's going to be using far more often are both AoE. So huzzah! Especially if you're thinking about something like Hag's Hollow, which needs AoE. Yes, just yes. But moving down to her ultimate, she does attack only one enemy with it, but has with a 75% chance this has got to level up to 100, surely, for it to be a one enemy. And this particular one, place lock core on the target for 2 turns. She gains 40 of enemy when placing a debuff on an enemy. Now, guys, I have been talking to Raven a lot about like kind of this tier list tool. I've been giving him some feedback. We're making some adjustments to it to make it completely like as best as we can. If there's anything about this tier list tool that you would like to see improved on, leave a comment down below, or better yet, join the Discord Pax Corollas. Raven is a member there, and so whether it's you mention it to me or to him, we're both there and chatting and learning about what everybody wants. So like for instance, like he's going to be working on putting the initial divinity and the cost of the ultimate here as well. So let's check out real quick just to make sure we understand exactly. So she starts with 325 and it costs 1550. If she gains 40 divinity when placing a debuff, I mean, sheesh. 75% chance, placing down 2. You talk about on wave content. So that is 80 per enemy if they both land. 80 times 5. That's 4. Am I doing that right? 400 divinity on one ability. That's already at half ultimate. Forget about initiative boosting or anything like that. She's going to be really cranking out those abilities. I'm a huge fan of Devana. When an enemy receives a turn meter increase, this hero retaliates. That is also huge. So retaliates is the counter attack. So they go into turn meter. She goes in, attacks everybody with a chance of stealing turn meter. Like Fateless, aside from her design, this kit could practically be legendary. Like you put a little bit more like percentage on her. I mean, she's as good as a legendary in my book. Has a 75% her awakening 5, 75% chance to place sleep on other enemies for 1 turn. Y'all, this kit. Okay, so I almost made a video about this, and it might as well talk about it now. But there is seeming to be this massive gap between Eternals and non-Eternal heroes. Granted, I don't know if it necessarily, why I didn't make a full video is because I don't think it necessarily applies to all archetypes. So like if you look at defenders, all of the S tier defenders, or a good portion of the S tier defenders that we think of today, are not Eternals. And so there isn't necessarily that gap in that archetype or in like Brawler. But if you look at disruptors specifically, there seems to be a massive gap in power when it comes to eternal and non-eternal. Because honestly, I think I would rather choose Devana over like, I mean, certainly Wang. But Pazuzu, Perun, Loki, like probably even Izanami is yeah, Izanami. Like she is a great kit. Like let me know if you think differently. Let me know. But we move on. Skadi, she is placing a lot of freeze. Her percentages are not as high as it was in the alpha, but still, she's going to be a great and hopefully accessible resource for placing freeze in the early game. We're going to have out guides on what to do in early game, like how to progress. And I would say right now, if I were to think back to how I've played these games before, I would not use a single eternal crystal until we know exactly what kind of events there are going to be, what kind of boosted chances there are going to be, because you want to maximize your eternals as much as possible, because that is truly where the power is inside of Godforge. But the sooner you can get your hands on Skadi, the better you'll be, especially for just progression and being able to move further into the game. But she is great. Then there's Ran. She is. I'm actually pretty impressed with this one. Well, actually, did I do that incorrectly? No. Oh wait, no. I'm sorry. I've been working so much with Eternals. I was assuming everyone was Eternal. Sorry, guys. Scratch that, editor. Scratch it. But you attack one enemy with a 35% chance to place lock ultimate for 2 turn. Low chance, but shoot, it's lock ultimate. Come on. Attack all enemies with a 75% chance to play speed down 2 for 2 turns. Yes. Speed control. Yes. Attack all enemies with 50% chance to place freeze on each target for 1 turn. This is where, yeah, this is a little tricky, but if an enemy is below 50% freeze, cannot be resisted. If freeze is not placed, place initiative down 2 on the target for 2 turns instead. The only reason she maintains at A is because she has a this or that, an A or B effect on her ultimate. I would much rather, if I'm working towards his ultimate, I'd much rather have a higher chance of freeze. But look, she's not eternal. If she was, it'd probably say 75% chance right here. Let's be honest. I don't know how I feel about that, but I feel that seems to be kind of the route they're taking. But if freeze is not placed, it places initiative down too. And this is when we start really talking about like divinity control. And I think I might be swayed in terms of how powerful divinity control is. I think it is incredible. Don't get me wrong. But when it comes down to just also like just straight up control, I'd rather have an enemy frozen or confused instead of, saying, oh, well, you just can't use your ultimate. Well, you can't use your ultimate if you're confused anyway. So that is why these hard CC, hard disable heroes have been up at the top, because they are reliable and they're consistent. But this is still good. She gains 40 divinity when placing debuff or disable an enemy. She's placing a ton of debuffs. Wow. Guys, words are hard. And I've only been going for like 30 minutes. But her attacks decrease 10% of the target's turn meter. Great control. So she is doing lots of debuffs. She's doing turn meter. She's doing disables. She's doing divinity control as well. She's really doing it all. And if the target is below 50%, steal 10% turn meter. And increase the turn meter of all allies by the same amount. She's going to be boosting so much. And it's this passive that absolutely makes her A tier. I remember when I was going through her the first time, I was like, okay, yeah, this is good. Oh, freeze, low percentage. Oh, okay, well, maybe B tier. And then I saw Cold Depths, and it was like, well, yeah, this is fantastic. Allies can only gain turn meter once per attack, but even still, she's going to be boosting your entire team. And if you get her, use her. Plain and simple. Next up, we do have Dagonet, an OG alpha hero that we were all guaranteed at the very beginning. And I don't know if they buffed him. I can't quite remember, but he really does seem great. And he is a good, consistent resource for defense down in the early game. If you can get him, he is once again eternal, but he does place defense down defense down 1 on all enemies for 2 turns with his core. But he also has lock core or lock ultimate on the targets for 1 turn on his basic. This guy is vanishing, making himself harder to hit, putting great debuffs on the enemy team. And then for Jester Dance's ultimate, he attacks one enemy, then attacks each enemy under defense down. Each hit has a 50% chance to steal one random buff from the enemy target. For a rare, guys, he is doing a lot of things for you. And so if you get him, especially in the early game, I would highly recommend using him. There is going to be lots of content in this game that's going to be very specific. They've talked about, Simon has recently talked about the reliquaries that are going to be coming before the end of the first year of Godforge. And that's going to become more challenging content when you need more heroes on your team that is going to allow you to do more things flexibly. And having Dagonet early on and using him to really empower your account is going to be a good move if you get him. I think he's absolutely an A tier hero, especially for a rare. Now, Izanami is a solid legendary. I think she got a lot of hate early on. I think her kit may potentially even not be fully up to date yet. We may not know what they're working on for her and Izanagi, but right now she's doing a lot of things with initiative and speed down. So she attacks one enemy with a 40% chance to place initiative down 2 on the target for 2 turns. Already out of the gate, basic controlling divinity. But with her core, she removes shield from all enemies, then attacks them with a 75% chance to place corrupt on the target for the highest HP for 3 turns. So basically, I imagine that there could very well be a boss that applies a shield to themselves. And so she could come in, remove that shield from everyone, and then place corrupt on, well, the boss, because of course they have the highest HP. And so, of course, if Izanagi's on the team, he'll join in with his core. But already that's a great synergy for some specific content. And yeah, she's going to be a great hero for it. On her ultimate, she attacks all enemies with a 75% chance to place speed down 2 and curse 2 on each target for 2 turns and decrease their turn meter by 20%. You'd have to get this going because it's an ultimate, but if you could pair her with Hades, she would unlock Hades' potential in an insane amount, putting curse out everywhere. He would just go nuts, and that enemy team wouldn't know what to do with themselves. And a go second team or a divinity boosting ultimate focused go second team, Izanami plus Hades could really dominate some things in the arena. Eternal Decay is her passive. When this hero attacks an enemy under initiative down, decrease their turn meter 5%. Well, she's placing it on her basic. So you just going to keep going to town with that basic, and they're going to not know where their turn meter is. Can't complain. Solid design. Next up, we do have Persephone. So Simon has been using her on his account right now in testing, and so we see a little bit of her, but haven't really been able to see her. He said that she was also carrying damage, but she is eternal, and she is, I think, the lowest eternal on my list when it comes to, when it comes to epics. Yeah, in fact, she might be. No, just kidding. Poor Pandora. Oh, sweetheart. Well, you'll get there, honey. Persephone, 40% in arena battles. Attack one enemy, 75% chance to increase the duration of one random debuff on the target by 1 turn. I mean, increasing duration is a good thing to have. It's something we want on our team. Can't complain about that, especially on the basic. But then her growth entangle, the core attacks all enemies with a 75% chance to decrease each target's turn meter by 10%. Decrease the turn meter by further 3% for each debuff on the target. So if she is like third in line on a team and you've been applying debuffs, then that turn meter control is absolutely going to ramp up. It's going to be great. Now the question is though, let's hop down to Regenerator really quick, because she gains 50 divinity when this hero places a debuff. Now, the only debuffs, except in her ultimate herself, is increasing the duration of one random debuff. So either she needs an update, or increasing duration is in fact triggering the placement of a buff or debuff based off of whatever the circumstance is. And so I could see this being challenging to use and her ultimate being challenging to use, but we'll have to see. It attacks one enemy with 75% chance to remove 2 buffs from the target, and then places Aether Burn. And if Hades is on the team, it also has a 75% chance to place resistance down 2 on the target. Very interesting. I don't know how I necessarily feel about her. I think she's bringing a lot, and the duration already puts her high on the list. I think that alone is good, but when an enemy gains a debuff, it decreases their defending by 5%. Further, great divinity control. Persephone, A tier. And then we have our second rare on this list. Nitocris, Necrosis. Definitely not Nitocris. Definitely not Necrosis. Nitocris. We'll see. Let me know if I'm saying that incorrectly. She's eternal rare. She attacks one enemy with 75% chance to steal one random buff. Stealing or decreasing buff durations are both great. So I'll take that, especially 75% chance from a rare on a basic. I mean, come on. That screams eternal all day long. I mean, I haven't looked at all of them, but like, show me another rare that's not eternal that does this. I doubt it's there, but let me know. Attack one enemy with her core Reclaim Glory with a 75% chance to transfer all debuffs from this hero to the target. That is great because of her ultimate. It transfers one random debuff from all allies to this hero and then attacks all enemies, increasing this hero's turn meter by 10% for each debuff transferred to this hero. So if everyone had, 2 debuffs on them, let's just say, because who doesn't like to place 2 debuffs at once, and you're in arena, that's already, you're taking, I guess the question is, well, you're not taking, 3 decreased defenses. You're taking only 1 decreased defense, but because you're taking it 3 times, do you gain 30% or do you gain 10%? Because it's 1 debuff. We'll see. Even still, increasing that turn meter and getting her faster in the turn order is going to be absolutely incredible. She's 30 accuracy in all battles. She's not built for arena. That was just the first thought I had of it, forgetting I was even talking about a rare, because let's face it, she's eternal. She feels kind of like an epic to me. But she gains 20 divinity when dealing damage to an enemy. Interesting generator for a disruptor, but her passive, Unwilling Usurper, at the start of this hero's turn, steal 10% divinity from the enemy with the highest turn meter. She's got some great things going on in her kit, and I think she is going to be a fun fill for some content, but she's certainly not going to be sticking around for the long haul, I would think. But even still, when you're looking for these types of things, I think she is A tier. I'm going to run through a couple of these really quickly. Loki, Perun, Pazuzu. I did push Loki up because does now have a reliable sleep, and these guys are a little bit more like chaotic in their disruption. And with sleep, while hitting them wakes them up, it's still a disabled that brings some level of consistency and true control and player choice into the fight. So that is why he is higher. I have Pandora here low because she is random and chaotic, just like Pandora's box. But then we have Koshchei. Attacks one enemy with 75% chance to steal divinity. Great. Soul Nullification. Attack all enemies with a 50% chance to place resistance down, initiative down for 2 turns. This is why he is in B tier, because, I mean, he's not eternal. And 50% chance to place debuffs. I mean, is that consistent? I don't know. Like, you tell me. It doesn't feel consistent to me, because I think it was this guy I was thinking about, like, you know, Mighty Ugo. Not Mighty Ugo. I was thinking about epics inside of Raid Shadow Legends and thinking about the percentage chances they have of placing their debuffs, and looking at this and saying, man, it's not like, oh, I mean, I have to first like hit the right affinity to even place it, but then I don't even have a 100% chance of doing what I want it to do. So he's bringing good things, he's stealing divinity, he's putting initiative down too, but I don't know if the consistency is there. I'll have to test it. Immortal Siphon attacks one enemy. Equalize the HP of all allies equal to the HP of the enemy before attacking. If you're attacking somebody with low HP, yikes. But if the target's HP falls below 50%, also reduces their divinity by 30%. That's a huge chunk. That's doesn't sound like an auto-friendly It doesn't sound like an auto-friendly ultimate to me, but I mean, we'll see. Withering Aura. Enemies under resistance down 2 or initiative down 2 inflict 20% less damage when attacking this hero or allies. And this is what does keep him definitely solidly up high in the B tiers, because when he does place these debuffs, he is creating damage mitigation for your team. 20%. This is basically a mini defender. So, yeah, he doesn't play shield, anything like that. He's not a defender, right? But you're getting the disruption with a little taste of defender through the damage mitigation. And that's nice. Can really help you push through content in the early game. If you get Koshchei, I would absolutely build him. Babi is a little all over the place. These guys, they're just a little, I can't quite pick up on what their core concept is. Each hit, 50% chance to place to spare. Okay, super low, he's a rare, it's a basic, fine. It's still a disable, so that's cool. Attacks all enemies with resistance down in Hex 1. This is the first time we see Hex on the Disruptor list. Okay, well, is that because he's unique or because Hex isn't really for Disruptors? Is that more for Invokers or, I don't know, whomever else? I don't know. But it's interesting that in all of these heroes, we've only seen Hex once. Granted, there are, what, 10 more that still don't have skills? So we might see it in some of those guys. I could definitely see somebody like Onryo placing Hex, definitely, or, Ixtabai, however you say that. I could see something like those kind of vibing here characters, heroes placing Hex, but it seems a little out of left field. But then his ultimate attacks all enemies with a chance to place banish on each target for 1 turn. Basically, they won't be able to revive the first time they're attempted to be revived. But he does gain divinity when placing debuff, and he does place a significant amount of debuffs. So can't go wrong with that. But enemies under banish receive 20% increased attack damage. So you got to get the ultimate up, and then you got to be able to use it. So his passive is only effective really once his ultimate hits, if his ultimate even lands, because it's 35% chance. He almost feels C tier to me, but he's bringing so many other things. And I mean, yeah, if I pull Babi early on and he's my only resource for having disable like despair, then you bet I'm gonna build him. Like, that control could be clutch. Granted, he'll be replaced relatively quickly, but I think he's, he's back of the pack, but he's not C tier yet. This guy, yeah, he attacks 1 enemy and places Vanish on the hero. He attacks 1 enemy with his core 2 times. Each play has a chance of speed down 1. He's a rare. And I think he was actually going to be an uncommon, so it makes sense that he's right on the line. But if the hero's under Vanish, it will place speed down 2 instead, which is great. He places Vanish on his basic. So open with this, then go into here. I have a feeling he's probably not going to be programmed that way in the auto play, but his ultimate, he attacks all enemies with a 50% chance to place initiative down 1 on each target for 1 turn. The hero is under Vanish, it's 2 instead. So really, you just want to get him vanished and then using all of his abilities. He gains 40 divinity when defeating an enemy. Yeah, I don't know how much we'll actually see his ultimate. We'll see. But if this hero is under Vanish, attacks have a 50% chance to place a random disable. I don't know. Y'all. If we placed Vanish on the core, I could see a little bit more synergy with this guy. I could see him even moving up into a little higher into B tier, maybe even the bottom of A tier. But with Vanish being on his basic, which means if he doesn't have these 2 things, it's happening every time, but it's not necessarily being set up at the very beginning. I don't know. Interesting. Definitely worth testing, checking out, playing with, but we'll see. Volkodlak, however you say that. Attacks on enemy, 40% chance to place bleed. First time we're seeing that in this disruptor list as well. Some fun synergies, perhaps with not Fafnir, with the dog. What's his name? Fenrir. Thank you, Charlemagne. But Places 2 stacks of bleed on Rabid Bite, attacks 1 enemy 2 times, each hit 20%. On Rabid Bite, he attacks 1 enemy 2 times, each hit has a 20% chance to place Lock Core on the target. It's good, but for a core, only 20%, even on a rare, seems a little low. Attack all enemies with his ultimate, Primal Howl, with a 50% chance to place Despair on each target for 1 turn. I think also a little bit of this because I'm reading this and there are good things in the kit, but it's like you work towards unlocking to using the core, to using the ultimate, and you get 40 divinity when placing a debuff on the enemy. Great. But then when these things don't hit, they don't land the critical parts of his kit, it just feels bad. Mark of the Predator, increased damage inflicted by this hero on enemies under despair by 10%. He seemed lacking in alpha. Maybe he'll be better when we get our hands on him again, but he just seems to be missing. But then there's Wang all the way down in C tier as a legendary, meaning if I get him, I don't think I'd even build him. And if he was my first legendary, please, where's knock, knock, knock? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Attacks all enemies, 35% chance, speed down 2. I mean, that's consistent in the fact that it's a basic. And he attacks everybody. Cool. He's going to be slowing a lot of people down. But he attacks all enemies, 75% chance, probably up to 100% of random targets. It's too much chaos for a legendary. I need consistency on my heroes and not knowing if I'm going to be putting defense down 2 or resistance down 2. One of those is extremely helpful for me to crush waves. Another one, not so much. It's disappointing. If we took down, man, drop these 2, keep these 2, and say he places them both, he's A tier immediately because he has speed down 2, AoE on his basic. He goes with his core, placing 2 debuffs, some of the best debuffs. And I mean, he is A tier immediately, without a doubt in my mind. If you've made it this far, let me know down in the comments if you agree with me. I know the Fateless team is welcome to feedback, and right now, that is my thoughts. But attacks all enemies with infernal silence is ultimate, then has a 50% chance to place lock core and lock ultimate on each target for 2 turns. This is both of them. Great. Fantastic. And he's gaining divinity when placing debuffs, which he's doing a lot of. But again, it's such a chance. It's probably gonna level up. It's probably gonna be a higher percentage. I could be totally wrong when the game comes out, and I'm okay with that. I hope I am, because there's too much chaos here. There's not enough consistency. There's not enough dependability. I'm not going to bring him in to put potentially maybe debuffs down when I can pick somebody else who will definitely put the debuff I'm looking for down. And I'm not going to necessarily be bringing him into like dungeons or campaign because, well, I'm not really focusing on lock core, lock ultimate in that type of combat either. It just doesn't feel right to me. But Judgment of DU increased this year's initiative by 2%, stacking up to 30% after placing a debuff. I mean, guys, that's he's just going to be firing through his ultimates, which very well could mean that this 50% is great because he's going to be hitting them pretty fast and he's probably going to be throwing out a bunch of them. We just don't know on whom. I don't know. Hopefully I'm wrong. Almost last but not least, we have Eurydice. I know I'm saying that wrong, but she attacks one enemy, 35% chance to place sleep. Attacks one enemy with the core, 35% chance to place stun. This doesn't make sense to me. Either one, Fateless is saying immediately that sleep is less valuable than stun because they're putting on a basic with the exact same percentage rating. Or this kit is just weird because then it's just like the basic and the core are the exact same. Damage is different, sure, but you're not building her for damage. You're building her to control, to place disables, to disrupt the team. And one enemy stun, she's a rare. So that alone is cool. But then the same on sleep, it just feels wonky to me. And so I have her down here just because this kit doesn't really make sense, personally. But then her ultimate attacks all enemies with 35%. Apparently, we saw somewhere that it levels up to 50% chance to decrease each target's turn meter by 10%. She only gains if anyone placing disables, which are inconsistent percentages. She has a low chance, a non-reliable chance to decrease target's turn meter by 10% after working hard to get the ultimate. It just doesn't hit with me. When an enemy with a disable takes a turn, decrease their divinity by 10%. This is the nicest thing. It could be a great imprint on somebody who places reliable disables. I like that about her. But everything else just doesn't seem to synergize in my mind. And that is why I'm putting her in the C tier. And then there's Cait Sith. And this creature, whatever it is, maybe a cat of some form, placing accuracy down 1 on the basic, attacking one enemy with 50% chance to decrease the target's turn meter by 20%. Solid turn meter, but I'd rather have lower turn meter on the basic, and 50% on the core just seems low, especially for one enemy. But then attack one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 40% chance to place speed down 1 and initiative down 1 on the target for 2 turns. It doesn't excite me, and I literally never used this creature in the alpha after trying them out once. Gain 40 divinity when placing a debuff on an enemy. Not enough debuffs to grow this well, in my opinion. And at the start of the round, place Vanish on the hero for 2 turns. While under Vanish, this hero has 20% increased accuracy. That's fine and all, but you're not really. There's nothing in her kit that makes you want to sacrifice accuracy for something else. Unless you're building her with a ton of initiative or a ton of speed. But even still, how you're building this, it's, a rare disruptor. Just seems really mid. Seems very poor, honestly. And so these are the disruptors of Godforge Early Access from top to bottom, from Morrigan to Cait Sith. This is how good I view them to be. And there is so much to test and so much to figure out. And so this is all subject to change. Even their kits are subject to change. But there is so much to do, so much to analyze, and so many questions to ask. So I've enjoyed doing this tier list. Hopefully you've enjoyed it too. Make sure, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and there's more content yet to come. So if you enjoyed this video, you're going to want to go ahead and check out this video next.